Unleashing your raw truth, why what feels like too much is the medicine we need. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I want to start by acknowledging the profound wisdom that sparked this conversation. Recently, I had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Temeka Maxey, a visionary force in the Black entrepreneurial community whose work has fundamentally transformed how thousands understand the revolutionary power of authentic storytelling. Tamika isn't just a thought leader, she's a healer, a truth teller, a boundary breaker who has dedicated her life to helping Black professionals reclaim their whole selves in spaces that have historically demanded their diminishment. Her courageous work in empowering people to embrace their complete narratives, especially the parts they fear might be too much, has created not just ripples, but tidal waves of transformation across industries. The testimonials I've heard from those touched by her work speak of liberation, of coming home to themselves, of finding strength they never knew they possessed. Have you ever held back from sharing a part of your story because it felt overwhelming, too complicated, too raw, too much? You're not alone. We live in a culture that worships at the altar of polish and perfection. We're taught to edit ourselves ruthlessly, to present only our highlight reels, to keep the messy parts hidden away where no one can see them. This is especially true for Black women professionals who have historically been held to impossible standards, expected to be twice as good while showing half the emotion. But I'm here today to challenge that narrative with everything in me. What if I told you that the very parts of your story you're most afraid to share might be your most powerful medicine? What if those unfiltered, complicated, messy chapters aren't liabilities at all, but your greatest assets? What if what feels like too much is exactly what someone else needs to hear to break free from their own silence? This isn't just inspirational rhetoric. The evidence surrounds us in the stories of Black entrepreneurs and professionals who have transformed entire industries precisely because they dared to bring their full, unedited selves, their complete stories, to their work. Consider Tamika Sherry Bond. She didn't just become another business owner, she became the first Black woman to own a self sustainable container home manufacturing facility in America. Let that sink in for a moment. Bond Containers represents a revolutionary approach to addressing affordable housing shortages, particularly in communities devastated by economic and environmental crises. But her path wasn't smooth or straightforward. She faced formidable barriers entering the male dominated construction industry. She encountered skepticism, sometimes outright dismissal, about her vision for eco friendly, disaster resilient homes that could be built in just 4 weeks. She had to convince investors, partners, and communities that her approach wasn't just viable, it was vital. What made the difference? Tamika didn't hide the parts of her story that might have seemed too much. She didn't downplay her fierce passion for serving communities where safe housing was out of reach. She didn't sanitize her righteous frustration with traditional construction methods that failed to meet urgent needs. Instead, she leveraged every aspect of her experience and perspective, including the painful parts, the angry parts, the parts that made people uncomfortable, to fuel innovation that couldn't be ignored. The result? Homes that are affordable, energy efficient, and built to withstand disasters. A company that's opened investment opportunities through public shares, and perhaps most importantly, a path cleared for other Black women in construction technology who were told there was no place for them. This is what happens when we refuse to edit our stories down to what feels safe or acceptable. Or take Temeka Catchings. Many know her as a NBA legend, an Olympic gold medalist, a basketball icon. But her story didn't end when she retired from professional sports. It evolved in ways that would have been impossible if she'd tried to fit herself into a conventional box. Tamika faced a profound identity shift when she transitioned from athlete to entrepreneur as the owner of Tease Me Cafe. She had learned entirely new skills, navigate unfamiliar business landscapes, and redefine her purpose beyond the basketball court. What's remarkable about Tamika's journey isn't just that she succeeded in building a thriving cafe, it's that she didn't try to separate her athletic identity from her entrepreneurial one. She didn't compartmentalize her story. She didn't hide the struggles of her transition or pretend that reinvention was easy. Instead, she wove together all the threads of her experience, including overcoming a hearing impairment as a child and facing countless obstacles throughout her career to create something uniquely powerful. Today, Tease Me Cafe isn't just known for its beverages, it's recognized as a community hub for empowerment events. Tamika has expanded the brand while becoming an inspiration far beyond sports circles. Why? Because she embraced every chapter of her story, including the complicated ones, the challenging ones, the ones that might have felt like too much. And it's not just individual entrepreneurs. Consider the collective impact of six influential Black women executives who have transformed Atlanta's music industry landscape. These women, spanning tech startups, artist management firms, and legal practices, face systemic barriers, including racial bias in executive roles and limited access to capital compared to their peers. Their response? They created networks built on shared storytelling about navigating these challenges, not the sanitized versions, but the raw, unfiltered truth of what they'd endured and overcome. They launched equity driven companies focused on changing music culture from the inside out. They mentored the next generation of talent through innovative programs targeting underrepresented groups. These women didn't succeed despite their complicated stories of confronting glass ceilings and systemic barriers. They succeeded because they embraced those stories, shared them openly, and used them as catalysts for transformation. The pattern is clear, isn't it? When we embrace our full stories, especially the parts that feel like too much, we unlock extraordinary potential, not just for ourselves, but for entire communities and industries. This brings me to three fundamental truths that Tamika Maxey shared with me during our conversation. Truths that have the power to transform how you approach your professional journey, especially if you're a Black woman who spent years in survival mode. First, authenticity fuels empowerment. When you embrace your full story, including the messy, unfiltered parts, you connect more deeply with others and lead with integrity in business and life. This isn't about performative vulnerability or trauma sharing for its own sake. It's about recognizing that your experiences, all of them, have shaped your unique perspective and approach. That perspective isn't a liability, it's your superpower. Second, resilience is built through adversity. The challenges you face as the Black entrepreneur or professional aren't setbacks, they're building blocks for legacy, innovation, and leadership. Every obstacle you've overcome, every barrier you've pushed through, every moment you've persisted when others might have given up, these experiences haven't weakened you. They've strengthened you in ways that give you unique advantages in solving problems and creating value. And third, community matters. Sharing your journey not only uplifts you, but also strengthens the entire ecosystem of Black professionals by normalizing vulnerability and collaboration. When you dare to share the parts of your story that feel like too much, you create space for others to do the same. You help build a culture where authenticity is valued over perfection, where real connection replaces superficial networking, and where collective wisdom can flourish. These truths represent a profound shift from how many of us have been taught to navigate professional spaces. We've been conditioned to believe that success requires us to compartmentalize, to present only our most polished selves, to leave certain parts of our stories at the door. But what if that conventional wisdom is not just wrong, but actively harmful? What if, in editing ourselves down to what feels acceptable, we're actually diminishing our power? What if the very parts of our stories that feel like too much are precisely what the world needs most right now? I want to be clear. This isn't about performative vulnerability or sharing for shock value. It's about recognizing that our complete stories, with all their complexity and nuance, are sources of wisdom, connection, and transformation. It's about understanding that when Tamika Sherry Bond brought her full perspective to the housing crisis, she created solutions that traditional approaches had missed. When Tamika Catchings integrated her athletic mindset with her entrepreneurial vision, she built something uniquely valuable. When those six executives in Atlanta's music industry shared their experiences of confronting systemic barriers, they created networks that are reshaping an entire industry. This is the power of embracing your unfiltered story. This is what becomes possible when you stop hiding the parts that feel like too much. In the Black professional community, this shift is particularly revolutionary. For generations, survival has required a kind of compartmentalization, a careful editing of self to navigate hostile environments. The toll of that constant self editing is immense. It drains energy, it stifles creativity, it prevents true connection. But there's another way, a way that doesn't require you to diminish yourself or hide parts of your story, a way that recognizes your complete narrative with all its complexity as a source of wisdom, power, and transformation. This is what it means to enter your soft girl era, not as a trend or aesthetic, but as a profound reclamation of your whole self. It means releasing the cape of the strong Black woman who must carry everything alone. It means redefining strength to include vulnerability, rest, and authentic expression. It means protecting your peace as a practice, not an afterthought. So today, I don't just invite you, I challenge you to step into the revolutionary act of sharing your unfiltered truth, to recognize that the parts of your story you've been hiding might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find their own voice, to understand that your willingness to be seen fully, completely, without apology might create ripples of transformation that extend far beyond what you can imagine. Take one step this week towards sharing an authentic piece of your journey with someone who needs it most. Not the polished version, not the acceptable version, the real version with all its mess and magic. Because the world doesn't need more perfect stories, it needs more true ones. And your truth, especially the parts that feel like too much, might be exactly the medicine someone else has been desperately searching for. Thank you.